made millions out of nothing just from spilling my truth. Yeah, we still grinding like we got something to prove, even though we got.
It's Straight Talk No Chaser with Kills, and today we're touching on how your early relationships with your parents and caregivers affect your relationships today. And this a personal one for me, y'all, because I have had some rocky relationships with caregivers, family members, as well as mates that I've chosen. If we really think about it, our first experiences with love come from our parents and our family members or our caregivers, whoever we grew up with. And for me, my relationship with my mother was so complicated. It was already tainted before I ever really knew what was going on. And I always felt that that was unfair to me. I felt like she rejected me and she made excuses for her behavior, but she was also valid in some of the stuff that, she talked about. But at the end of it all, I was a child that had to bear the burden of that pain and deal with the consequences of two grown adults. And I yearned for her love. I did majority of my life. Like, I'm 37 and I cannot recall a time when I was just having an emotional moment with my mother. I don't recall getting really hugs often. I recall like very few kisses on the cheek. It's just I always felt like an outcast. I often found myself trying to prove myself to that side of my family, to my mother, to my siblings, to everybody. I felt like they had an image of me that was portrayed of me that wasn't fair. You know what I mean? I was only a kid. So for the longest, I did the work, I did the calling, and no matter what I was doing, it was never good enough. And I really just wanted to be loved, to be accepted, to be a part of that family. Like, I wanted all my family. So that used to be very hard for me. And I feel like a lot of her feelings came from her resentment towards my daddy and the things that happened between her and him and my grandmother, his mother. Um, but like I said, I'm not responsible for adults. So I did my best to try to mend it. And it was just like she was so angry with him for taking me that she took it out on me. So I spent a lot of my life just trying my best to mend those broken pieces. But a pivotal moment happened in my life. When I went to speak to her one day, it was just me and her. I was at her house on her couch, and I'll never forget it. I was the most vulnerable I had ever been in my life, and it's hard for me to open up to people. I try to keep this face on. For one, I was raised by my daddy, so that's a different type of emotion. It's like I'm a woman and I have that nurturing side, but I also have the logic. And he taught me a lot of good things, and I saw a lot of good qualities in my dad, but you know how it go when it comes to stuff like that. But I told her, I'm like, I need you. And I feel like I spent my life trying to mend things that I never broke. And I said, everybody gets to go on with their lives except for me. It's like I'm the only one left to figure everything out. And she looked at me in my face and told me, I don't know how to love you. Basically, and I could be putting some words in her mouth, but in a nutshell, I was a product of them. They had did damage to not just her, but to me and my siblings. And it was just, I guess, hard for her to bounce back from that. And like I said, some of it was justified for the way that I was taken and things like that. But everybody, it's always two sides or three sides to every story, however you want to look at it. Your side, they side, and the truth. So what I gather from both sides is that they wanted the best for me at the end of the day, but they could have went about things a little differently. She took offense to that, and then also kind of got in a way of, if I can't have her completely, I don't want her at all. So some of it was on her while I wasn't around. And I felt like, so part of it was her anger towards them, and then the other part was her guilt for the part that she played. Because it comes a point in all of our lives where we have to be accountable for the part that we play in things and what we do. But it was in that moment that I realized I had to stop fighting. Nothing that I did, no amount of force, no amount of over giving, over loving, proving myself was ever going to fix that situation. I had to accept what it was and decide to move on with my life because all that was doing was hurting me in the end. Sometimes when you know who people are, you have to accept things and people for what and who they are and move on with your life. Not only was it hurting me, but it was also affecting my relationships when it came to me and men. I found myself attracting emotionally unavailable men. I found myself trying to prove my worth a lot. I found myself trying to be enough. Um, and when I really look at it, most of the relationships and the people that I was yearning for weren't even worth the energy that I was giving them. Like, to be honest, I deserved much better and I was settling. No tea, no shade, but I was settling. And we all know what it's like to settle sometimes, whether it be for a job, for a person, and a relationship that we know we're not supposed to be in, something that we know we deserve better than, but for whatever reason, we're there. I had to be real with myself and realize that I was operating from an unhealed space. I was still that wounded little girl giving my power away. And in the back of my mind, I was always questioning, if my mother couldn't love me, how could I expect somebody else to love me? But if that's what I'm feeding myself, then how am I going to ever attract somebody that loves me? Because you only can receive what you believe you can have. So if I'm working against myself, how am I going to receive anything good? I had to see myself and love myself for who I really was. I had to embrace the real me, not who I wanted to be, not who other people thought I was, but who I was in that moment today. I had to realize that who I was right now was a beautiful person. I could work towards who I wanted to be, but I had to embrace the real me. I was giving so much of myself to everybody else, and everybody could see the value in me but me. So I made up my mind that the love I wanted from other people, I was going to give it to myself. I started taking myself out on dates. I started buying myself cards, especially on days when I was feeling down. I would go to a store and go to whatever section I felt like I needed in that moment. And I would only read like the front of the card, or sometimes I wouldn't do that. I would just go based off of the picture. And whatever I was drawn to, I would get the card, buy me some flowers, and not read it for a few days. And every time I opened a card, whether it was encouragement, love, whatever, it always was on point. I started to do for myself what I wanted somebody else to do for me so that I could know what it felt like, so that I could feel it from me first. I started falling in love with me. I started getting back in touch with things that I love that I didn't even remember that I loved. Like writing is my favorite pastime. So I started back journaling. I started back writing poetry. And I even faced my fears and got up and read some of my poems at an open mic night. That really freed me. It lifted weights off of me that I didn't even realize I was carrying. And it was so healing to write about things, because sometimes you can articulate things in writing that you can't always say verbally. And then who's going to judge you? You can write whatever you feeling honestly and not have to have anybody else read it. You can throw it away, burn it, keep it, whatever. I had found my voice again. And that was something that was really important to me. Once I started building that confidence up, I stepped back into the dating scene. And baby, I met some cool people, don't get me wrong. I started talking to somebody consistently as well. But things just wasn't going the way I had planned on them going. Like what I had seen, I've been off the scene for a minute. Since I was out of my last relationship, I want to say it's been about 5 years, and we were engaged, and that relationship really took a toll on me. That breakup was devastating. So I had to do things for myself, get back to in school, do just some things for me before getting back on the dating scene and love myself a little more. But when they say it got piss in it, I see why they say that. I try to be positive, so I don't want to say everybody messed up, but I realized in dating so many people are controlling. They lack communication skills. Um, and people don't know how to agree to disagree. And some of this I am guilty of or have been guilty of. So I know that it takes time changing and blending with other people and meeting new people. All these things are difficult. But change is not supposed to be easy, it's challenging. If everything was easy, you wouldn't grow. After dating around for a while, just going out on dates, seeing what's out there, I had ran into an old childhood friend, so we had started talking and we connected really over music. I also love music. I am in the process of trying to learn how to play the guitar. Like, I am a very big poetry fan, music fan. I love melodies. And so we're talking about this one day on the phone. And he loves music too, so we just going back and forth. And as I'm telling him, like, yeah, I love melodies, he said, bitch. I'm like, oh, okay. At this point, it wasn't even me being offended. I don't feel like I had time to be offended. I was so thrilled that he was like, bitch. I never in all my years heard a man talk like that. Not one man, like personally in my face. I've seen some stuff on TV, but sir, you pushing it for me. He proceeds to say after that, you must need me to come wrap my arms around you, you pretty little bitch, you. Sir, what the hell have you been watching? I don't need you to do none of the sorts. I laughed it off, and when I got off the phone, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm not ready to date. I said all that to say, when you start to heal yourself, when you start to love yourself, when you start to identify your wounds and triggers, when you change the way that you see yourself, your entire world and everything around you changes, even if it's slowly. And a very important thing happens in that moment. You start to realize that the things you once accepted, the things you were once in alignment with, are no longer in alignment with you anymore. You're no longer attracted to it anymore. You stop settling. You walk away quicker. You stop ignoring red flags. You start to pay attention more. You start to value yourself and train people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. It's certain things you won't accept anymore. It's certain rooms you won't even walk in anymore. And not to say it arrogantly as if they are beneath you, but it's certain things that will be beneath you. I hate to say it in that way, but it is. And you definitely stop building a life on potential. You're not focused on potential anymore. You're focused on what is. You're remaining present. Being in the present moment is so beautiful, and it is a blessing. We have to start embracing the now and not what we want things to be or what they could be in the future. Work from now. Operate in the now. Because when you see your value and you see your work, other people can see it as well. And you move differently. As always, protect your peace, keep growing, keep glowing, and keep healing. And give yourself grace. Until next time.
Took every risk cause we had nothing to lose. Making millions just spelling my truth. Spelling my truth.